How come Victoria's the only state that hasn't changed it?
Well, I won't go into private conversations, but
Oh,
suffice to say, let's say you're the government. You need to govern. You don't like the Greens. You join the dots, right? I
yeah,
was, I caused four Greens to lose their seats last time.
you're right.
Four of the suckers. So suffice to say that the Greens and Green supporters don't send me Christmas cards. Now, the Labor Party was very happy with that. They could govern. I'm not talking about from a policy perspective. I don't get into that. And that's where Aiden, thinks I'm a leper. If you guys get elected, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. That's not my business, except for one thing, and that is electoral reform. Let me say up front, if you get elected electoral reform, you pick up the phone to me. Anything else, it's not my business. You do what you want. And unless you're a racist or a loopy, crazy, ultra nutter Christian, I'll work with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working with Rob Barton. I'm working with AJP. I have to I'm working with the DLP. I've got to bolster my right flank. I've got to bolster my left flank and everybody in the middle. I have to.
Very good, John.
That's how it is. And that's been happening for nearly 25 years.
Okay.
I'm responsible for more electoral reform in this country than anybody else. I don't like that, but it is the case.
But you said that's not going to happen in Victoria.
I don't like using words like it will not happen. It's absolutely right. Or this. I would say that it could happen, and depending on the outcome, is hopefully not likely to happen. I am focused on the longer game, and that is we've got to give the government, which will be the Andrews government, we've got to give them a crossbench they can work with. Now, I'm putting the horse before the cart. I shouldn't even be having this conversation with you. But if you are elected, we will be having some serious chats.
Yeah, understood.
But that's down the track.
So if the Liberals get in, though, you're afraid that these reforms would change?
Oh, they will.
Okay.
They will. I had an emissary come to me from the Libs a year ago in the height of COVID lockdowns. And this is a guy I know. He's was a senior staffer in the federal government that I had a lot of dealings with when I was chief of staff with Hinch. A lot of dealings with, and I like the guy. We get on well. We trust each other. And he said, we want you to do your best to get rid of Dan. It's the right thing to do for the community. You've got to do it. He was appealing to, my sense of community and self. And I said, I agree. What's going on with these lockdowns is terrible. It's terrible. He said, so you're going to help? And I said, well, what you need to do is come back to me and say that the Liberals will make a public statement to say they're not going to get rid of the group voting ticket. Oh, they'll never do that. Then I'll never help. Why the would I help somebody the minute they get in, they want to put their finger here and just start pushing until I can't breathe anymore?
But has
Not
Labor
going to do that.
has Labor committed to say they won't, though?
The conversation doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
The conversation is, I want you to be able to govern, and I will help you find a pathway forward. Of course, if you announce early on that you're going to get rid of the GBT, the crossbench will become a very, very crossbench. And you want to govern?
Yeah.
I can help. You want to keep the GBT? That's great. We can keep the Greens at bay. That's how the conversations go.
There you go, John.
If you win, you'll give me 55K.
55.
Well, normally I'd charge you 5K as a...
It's gone up 5,000 since last time, mate.
No.
Not really. Before was before. It was a before and after. Whereas now it's...
Everybody gives me 5K as a member of the family.
Okay.
I'm not going to charge you that. If you win, you can give it to me. But let me say this. What I would suggest you do if you win is I know my way around the parliament. I know my way around the legislation. I know all the players. I would urge you to take me on as an advisor and consultant. You can pay me through the administration fund, and I'd be charging you roughly $1,000 a week. And I think you probably only need me for a year and a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh. I see what you're saying. You're just saying you can't pay you directly, can you?
You can't pay me out of the admin fund for electoral work, and I would not seek that.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
That's not appropriate, but I think new guys like you need advice. And I give advice to lots of parties.
I was going to say, what if you'd be giving advice to 8 other parties?
Some of them continue, and it's look. This bit is the easy bit. Yeah. Getting elected is the easy bit. Once you get there, you are up against the most Machiavelli minds in the country. Yeah. Now, you guys might be very good at what you do in your careers. I've put people in Parliament who have been executives in airlines, a divorced mother who hadn't had a job, in 20 years, a former prostitute, Fiona Patton, taxi drivers, school teachers, accountants, a guy who was a grave digger. I've put all kinds of people in. The point I'm trying to make is what do you do once you get there? You're like a little kid from a cute little country school. All of a sudden you're thrown into the biggest, meanest, toughest high school in the country. And you've got the people who are out to get you. Yeah. That's the hard bit, is now I'm here. How do I get things done? So I do offer that service. I've been around 25 years. I know how to get things done. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to tell you who I advise. Aidan thinks it's the Lib Dems. That's it. Well, it's a lot more than that all over the country. And it's those who are getting things done. And that's why you're there. You're not there. This is my view anyway. Why did you form this party? It's if you form this party and you're not going to try and win by all means possible, legal means possible, then you may as well have just gone and formed a coffee club or go play cards or a social group. You form a political party to win, and you want to win because you want to achieve change. Yeah. Now, there are certain rules that you need to follow to do that. And the rules of the socialists and Aidan, firstly at the electoral level, no. Do not walk into that machine gun. You will die. Mm-hmm. A minor party has had the balance of power in this country at a state or federal level for nearly 25 years. Yeah. And my fingerprints have been on almost all of them. And that's pretty good. And that has impacted a whole shit ton of things, like the Medicare co-payment. It didn't happen. Like Christopher Pyne's education reforms. Didn't happen. Like Clean Energy Finance Corp. We saved it. Arena research into that stuff. We saved it. And on and on and on it goes. My opponents would say, state of emergency in Victoria. You kept it going. Well, yeah, Rod Barton and Andy Medic voted for it. They did. Mm. So Aidan's problem then, and we never even got to the point where I said, I'm not going to work with you. We didn't even get to that point. He just assumed that, so he's going to try and beat me another way, and that is discredit me. That Drury worked with Fiona Patton. Yeah, I did. To stop you, you little mm-hmm. Drury worked with Rod Barton. I did. Animal justice. Yes. I had to elect Andy Medic. That was part of the deal. The CFMEU came to me, who at the time, this time 4 years ago, was the biggest financial contributor to the ALP. And I know them. I know the executives there. We had lunch, some nice wine, and he said, you're wondering why we're having a chat? And I said, I think I know why we're having the chat. I said, Andy Medic wears steel cap boots and high-vis clothing, and you want him in Parliament? And they said, we do. And I said, and you're going to tell me that you'll go to the ALP and make sure I get ALP preferences before the Greens everywhere. We are. Job done.
Wow. When was this? Last election?
4 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
So why did I put Andy Medic in Parliament? Because the shooters were preferenced before the Greens everywhere. So was the LDP. So was everyone else. So was Hinch. First time that's ever happened. Everything has a cost. I had to put Andy there to get what I needed. 9 people were elected.
Wow.
That's how it's done. And yep,
Yeah.
I put Andy there. I put Rod there. Also put the shooters and Hinch. All of them. That's what Aiden doesn't understand. I won't deal with them. They're not pure. Then, okay, then you're going to die.
Yeah.
You won't.
What's going on down there? I saw this thing about like unions kicking up a stink against Dan and all this stuff. And last time we spoke, you said now with the new head of the unions, you pretty much didn't have their support anymore. It feels like it's a...
No, I don't talk to Setco. The guy's a thug.
Okay.
I've still got an in with the CFMEU. They're giving me polling and things. So let me tell you about Sackdan Andrews, and I'm bringing you into confidence here. It's one of mine, and it was conceived when Aiden. I predicted what would happen with Aiden months ago. So you've got to put something in place, to defend yourself, and then attack. And that's what I did. I looked all over their social media. I could have called it the Pro-Jet Trails Party. I could have called it the Port Arthur Conspiracy. I could have called it the Wacko Crazy Lunatics Party, but I didn't. Every other post was Sackdan Andrews, Sackdan Andrews, Sackdan Andrews. We're going to form the Sackdan Andrews Party. We did. Me and my allies. That's been formed because if that gets a decent draw, it's going to completely usurp Clive, One Nation, and poor little Aiden. He's a bit Aiden. He's not smart. You know what that is?
Is this the red shirt saga, is it?
That's a red shirt that I got.
Oh, God. Go swimming in that one.
So I'm going to wear that when I'm doing the GVTs. I'll be wearing that. And another shirt that the Greens produced last time as a fundraiser to stop me. It says, "Don't blame me. I voted below the line."
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Sackdan is in my crew.
Oh.
And again, that was initially conceived to counteract the problem of Aiden. Aiden thinks it's another cooker party, which is great. Information warfare, mate.
Yeah, wow. Interesting.
So...
Are they running lower house seats or just upper house?
At this stage, they'll be trying to win an upper house seat.
Okay.
Whether I run them in the lower house is still to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still discussing that. Prior to the discipline that I brought to minor parties, which was in 99, very, very few minor parties got elected.
99, was that your first one?
Yeah, 99 was my first election. And I put 3 people in.
You did?
3 people. Yeah. The quota at the time, or there still is, New South Wales is about 4.5%. I put 3 people in on just over 2%.
Yeah, right.
And that them off. That really them off, and they changed the rules within 6 months. That was one guy at the time was elected on the smallest primary vote in history, Australian history, was 0.2%. I've since smashed that record. So that was 99, and there's just been countless elections since then. I've forgotten how many people have been elected. Yeah. Back in 99, when I was up to I think the last party I formed, the way I formed parties back then, you only needed 200 names. I had volunteers with me. We would go out in the streets in Sydney, and I put up a sign that said, "Stop Pauline Hanson, sign here. Stop Fred Nile, sign here." And I go to lefty areas, and I couldn't beat people off with a stick. So I was forming one party every weekend toward the end. They were the halcyon days. But we got to, speaking of names, this is a funny story, we got to weeks out from the writ. This was going to be our last party. We were exhausted. We'd all wasted our bloody Saturdays and Sundays doing this for months. Well, it wasn't wasted. It was just, it was busy time. And I got my 3 or 4 volunteers there. We got the signs up and people start coming in. Oh, shit. We'd formed Save the Forest, the Women's Party, the Four Drive Party, the Gun Owners Party, the Marijuana, the Gay and Lesbian, Save the Forest, and so on and so on. What are we forming today? Oh, shit, I don't know. And I said, the 3-day weekend party. What? Yeah, let's do it. It went really well. It was just a joke. Noms open, I think, on Thursday, from memory. So get your noms in for those lower house seats. That's really important. That gives you a negotiating tool.
Yeah.
It gives you some insurance, right? And that's why you do it. You shouldn't. What I say to minor parties is, and here's another mistake Aidan's making. We're going to run in at least 35 seats, hopefully every seat. Why? We're guerrilla fighters. We fight on our terms, not the enemy's. If we go out there and try and fight an imperial power on the field, we're going to lose. We've got to chip and retreat and attack and off. We've got to fight like the Viet Cong against the Yanks, right? Not on their terms, because they will beat us every time. They've got resources and paid consultants and all this shit, which we minor parties don't have. So my advice to you guys and to minor parties is the lower house is only there as a negotiating tool to get you what you want in the upper house.
Yeah.
You've got to be really smart about this. Focus this rifled approach. And if we run in these hot seats, the ones that I told you, they're the hot seats of the ALP. Don't run in safe seats just because you've got a member who lives in Dandenong. I want to run here to help you. It's not helping you.
Yeah.
It's creating a little administrative problem for you. Someone's got to deal with it. It's energy expended that you don't need to expend. Stay focused on the mission. The mission is get preferences in the upper house. How do we do that? We leverage.
Yeah.
So those seats are where you can leverage. Focus on those seats. Run there. If we need to negotiate with the ALP, you can do it yourself. I can do it on your behalf. But you've got something to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really important that you get candidates in those seats.
Yeah.
And don't worry, unless you want to create work for yourself, that party member who lives up in the Mallee and wants to run to help you, why? It's not going to help. The only groups you've got to worry about, those freedom Craig Ellis, which is cannabis and reason. Pets, of course, got to talk to him. The rest I control.
Gotcha.
Everybody. I'll be filling in the GBTs.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Even Louise, is she there? She's probably a candidate somewhere. I don't know.
That's a busy
So
night,
that's
mate.
what I say to you. If there's an opportunity, I've got enough resources to throw oxygen at you to keep you alive. We touched on that conversation a couple of months ago where I suggested that the theory of the pawns must die so the king can live. Get people in these other seats who are absolutely prepared to resign and give it to you.
Yeah.
That is, how does that work in reality? Let's just say that the stars align, you get a good draw in Northeast. I can throw enough oxygen at you to keep you alive until other things kick in, and I'll just do that. If I think it's, again, I'm not going to put others at danger if I think it's too risky.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's got to be right, and if it's right, I'll throw oxygen at you to keep you treading water till the major parties kick in, the Greens kick in, and so on, and theoretically you get elected. But you need a situation there where that's one of your pawns, trusted, I mean absolutely trusted people that within weeks, a month or two, for family reasons, whatever, it doesn't matter what reason, they resign, and by convention, the party, you guys, puts up another name. There's a joint sitting in Parliament. Bang, you're a member of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
If you're going to get elected, that is your pathway forward.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, hello. Thank you for your many, many questions. I have them on my phone. They've been pouring in via email, Instagram, Facebook, and all the rest of it. I'm with the one and only Joel Jammal, Turning Point Australia.
Yeah, it's very good to do this in person. Oh
it is.
God.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Like you have been bouncing like a ping pong ball between Sydney and Melbourne for how long?
A few months.
Yeah, a couple of months.
Look, since the federal election, the work really started.
Okay, and this is what's pissing me off. You still look fresh as a daisy.
Well, like,
You're still looking like.
this is how you know I'm 25. Because
Well, okay, that's true.
You can get drunk on the weekend and still be up on the Monday, you know?
I
to be
can't
young.
do that.
No, that's right. It'll catch up to me eventually.
The irony is, when I was 25, I wasn't getting drunk. It's
right.
COVID that pushed me to drink,
Right.
and now I'm 38 years old when I started, and oh
I've
goodness.
actually never been drunk before. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
not what this is about. Sorry, guys. Yeah, this is what happens.
Rabbit hole.
This is what happens when I'm here in person. But so Topher, what are we doing here, basically?
Okay, so I've asked for people to submit questions that they have for you or for me or for both of us about the Victorian election. So that's obviously the theme here. The Victorian election now is only just over a week away. We're going to go through a bunch of these questions. You've got some incredible Turning Point Australia resources on the Turning Point website. You might as well put that up online
Yeah, sure.
for people to have a look at now.
Here you go, guys.
Just incredible, phenomenal work you've done. And I know that it's involved you burning the candle at both ends. And I've been one of those people in your ear like, oh, hang on, no, can you improve this? Can you change that? And
That's good.
making your life even more difficult. And just massive respect for the work you've done. Thank you. So that's really what today's about. Q&A, answering questions, and taking advantage of this man's brain while he's down here in Melbourne, and making sure we understand what's going on with this election. So, I'm going to start with a question from Sue. She asks, several parties have been listed as using Glenn Drury for preferences, including the Liberal Democrats. Full disclosure, I am a member of the Liberal Democrats. How much influence will that have on the election? Well, the initial answer has to be it's going to have a big impact, and we know that because the reason why the Liberal Democrats have 2 elected MPs right now is because of Glenn Drury. They worked with him at the last election. So a lot of people have sort of forgotten this already. If you go back to prior to the last Victorian election, there were 5 Greens in the upper house and they held the balance of power. Because of Glenn Drury and the preference whispering and all of those games being played, which the Liberal Democrats were a part of, the Liberal Democrats got 2 MPs elected, displacing 2 of those Greens, and the Greens no longer held the balance of power in the Senate. Now, along with that came Transport Matters and one of the other micro parties as well. So it wasn't all good news, but we went from 5 Greens down to 1 Green, 2 crazies, and 2 Libertarians, 2 people that actually love freedom, that would not have got that seat without it. So I think it's fair to say, on the one hand, it's going to have a big impact. But there's also been a lot of Glenn's in the news at the moment, and you might need to update me on that because I'm kind of out of the loop.
I will.
But I'm actually really glad this is happening because I would love to see the group voting tickets get abolished. That's, for me, I'd love to see this whole thing gone. And so I'm kind of glad that it's getting the attention that it is. But what's going on with that?
Yeah, so the Herald Sun last night at 8 p.m. It was so awesome because we were doing an event last night. It was the final Restore Victoria event we did. And the Herald Sun broke this story. And I encourage you all to look at it. There's a 20-minute video where Glenn Drury is sitting down with the Angry Victorians Party, used to be known as the Australian Values Party. And you have on there Glenn Drury, I think on his yacht, Heston. I'm not joking. I mean, if you look at it, it looks like he's on his yacht. And you've got Heston Russell, who's the head of the party, and you've also got the head of the party in Victoria, Chris. I forgot Chris's last name, but Chris. I think it's Chris Burson. Chris Burson, absolute legend. Both military guys, men of moral character, and we knew they were going to drop something, but we didn't know specifically what. So you can see. It looks like he's on his yacht.
It does look like the inside of a boat. Yeah, it does.
I encourage you guys to look at it. It's I've been told this is a cut of a 2-hour video, so it's just 20 minutes. I don't think the 2-hour video is out there.
If I understand correctly, it's what we're looking at, and full disclosure, I've got a very pregnant wife and a couple of kids to look after. I actually haven't seen it yet.
Sure.
But my understanding is it's basically Glenn Drury pitching to the Australian Values Party guys and saying, hey, you should use my services. You should engage my services. So it's a sales pitch from Glenn.
Yeah. So what does Glenn do? There's a lot of people on here that know what he does. And I encourage all of you to share that are experienced warriors in this. But what Glenn does, and this is the sort of graphic we're talking about, this is a very complex graphic, and you're all probably looking at it like, what the hell does that mean, Joel? Why are you trying to give me, brain surgery? This graphic basically demonstrates how the different parties preference each other. Now, when you go
pause, because it's not actually preference. It's a group voting ticket. So that's actually. It's unlike in the federal election where the party could make a recommendation, but it was down to what you put on the ballot.
Yeah.
In the Victorian election, in the upper house, if you just put a number 1 next to one party above the line, and that's it, you just go, 1, they're who I'm voting for. That party actually dictates where your vote goes from that point.
Yeah, that's right.
So this isn't actually a recommendation. This is literally where they will send your vote if you vote above the line.
So I don't have a how to vote card on me, but all parties essentially, they vote above the line. In this state, unlike federal, if you vote above the line, the party will pick where your preference flows. And if you vote below the line and you number at least 5, you pick where it goes. And so
vote below the line, people.
Vote below the line. I mean, you'll notice on our how to vote cards on the website, below the line is what we've opted for, so you control the preference.
Yeah.
Adjust it if you like. To whatever suits you.
Yeah.
But what's been happening, and this is why this graphic will make more sense after that explanation, is these parties. Where are they preferencing people? Where are they sending your votes? So if you look at your favorite Freedom Party, one of the 9, or even the major parties, you can see, hang on a sec, if I put the Liberal Party first, it doesn't necessarily mean my vote's going to go to all the Freedom Parties. Likewise, if you vote for the Shooters, Farmers, Fishers, or the Health Party, Health Australia Party, your vote's going to a lot of those red left-wing parties, many of which, as was revealed in this particular video, are actually Glenn Drury shell parties, and that's a new term that's come into it.
Now, this was the bombshell that did come out of this Glenn Drury interview. Now, what Glenn does is well known. Anyone that follows politics in Victoria has known about this for years upon years. It's, a lot of what's being called revelations are not new at all. They're very much public. It's the worst kept secret in Victorian politics, with the possible exception of Daniel Andrews' corruption. But what did come out of it was that he's actively using shell parties to funnel, to basically game his own clients. And this is really interesting to me because I wonder, and this is pure speculation on my part, I want to make that clear, but I wonder whether he's actually in breach of some certainly ethical considerations, but then also potentially legal considerations as a consultant who's been engaged by parties, and he's then created a conflict of interest for himself. He says apparently, again I haven't seen it, but apparently in that video he basically says that he's trying to make sure that the crossbench is friendly to Daniel Andrews. Now what that would mean is that a party like the Liberal Democratic Party, which have not been friendly to Daniel Andrews, are not going to get treated very well by him, but they engaged him and they paid him. So I really do wonder if Glenn is going to find himself some of the sins of the past coming back to haunt him because of actually very unprofessional, unethical and potentially illegal conflicts of interest that he's created amongst. I mean, look, let's talk about preference whispering for a moment.
Yeah, sure.
Every party has to come up with a group voting ticket, right? They are required to put a group voting ticket, and that is the order in which they will direct other people's votes for their party if they just do the vote above the line thing. And of course, every party wants to negotiate to maximise their own chance of winning. So, for example, we've got a whole bunch of socialist parties in Victoria. Surprise, surprise, we are the socialist state. And they all preference each other. And what they do is they get together and they have a little meeting and they say, listen, Party X, we're all going to put you at number 2 in this one district to maximise your chance of winning in that district. But in return, you're going to put this other party at number 2 in this other district, and they all they go around this wheel where they all get their one moment in the sun. Right? They all get that one seat that they've got the maximum possible chance of winning because all of the other preferences are directed towards them. This stuff's already going on.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. The Liberal Party, the Labor Party, they have paid professionals whose job it is to be running around negotiating these preferences. So the idea of paying someone to negotiate preferences and the idea of having preference swap deals and wheels where you've got your one seat where you're preferred and then the others where you're not, all that already exists, absent Glenn Drury.
Yeah, that's right.
What Glenn did was he added another layer on top of it.
Yeah.
And he said, I will create a cabal, a little group of people, and the entry requirement is that you have to pay me, right? And of those people, we will then create a wheel where we'll focus on one party in one seat and a different party in another seat and so forth.
That's right. And that's what you guys can see on the screen now, the way it works. Unlike federally, in the upper house, you got the lower house. This is irrelevant to this discussion. But in the upper house, what you see is the state is segmented into regions, 8 regions. And what they do is, as you were saying, they say, okay, we've got 8 clients. We're going to basically splice up Victoria. We're all going to preference this person in this green region. We're all going to preference this person in the blue region. And they go around the state and they game the system so that the 5th person that gets up in each of these regions is a part of the club. And absolutely, it's a conflict of interest. I think that, we're seeing the last of the hurrah from all of this. I've spoken to all the freedom parties that answered our policy matrix, and we're adding a new question on there. We're updating to version 3 of this graphic, where we asked them, do you think that the system needs to be reformed, where the power of the vote returns back to the voters? And they all said yes, absolutely. And we're gonna try and make movements towards that. And this is the thing. Will they do it? I don't know. I have no idea. It could be an empty promise. But they're going on record, and it's the start of a conversation we need to have.
Yeah.
This looks really bad. This what's come out with Glenn Drury, it's bad. In the mainstream. And just like what happened with COVID, when the mainstream started reporting on, hang on a sec, you mean to tell me the jab doesn't stop transmission? Then everyone's like, how did we not know about this? This is it. It's like, we were trying to tell you guys. We were trying to tell you.
So, to summarise and to finish up with this question, yes, what Glenn does have an impact. That's why he's able to charge stupid amounts of money, and that's why parties do pay. We know it'll have an impact because it's had an impact in the past, and I would argue that 2 of our best MPs here in Victoria over the COVID journey, 2 out of only a handful of good ones, only have their seat because of Glenn Drury. Now, I say that as someone who would happily abolish the group voting tickets. I do think it should be down to the individual to write the numbers, as many or as few as you want to write, and your vote only goes there. So, on principle, I oppose the idea. But in practice, this is the system that we have. Glenn Drury's activities are certainly questionable ethically, and a lot of people have questioned it ethically. What's been revealed in the last 2 days only dramatically increases the ethical questions around it, but it is legal. And so some parties, including the party that I personally like the most, the Liberal Democratic Party, have chosen to engage with that. They've copped a lot of flack for doing that. You can make up your own mind about whether that was a right or wrong thing for them to do. But what we can be sure of is that those preference deals and that preference whispering is going to shape the next parliament.
Can I just say, last night, sorry to cut you off, but I actually made the point that all these parties have pledged to try and change the system.
Including the Liberal Democratic Party. Even though they've used the system, they've agreed that it needs to change.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Glenn can't now pull out and say, no, because it's all locked in. As of last Sunday,
once they're published, you can't change them.
You can't change them, and these are how to vote cards. So it's locked in. And so now we're in a situation where it's like, okay, beautiful. Now we've got to work with what we've got. And it's so funny, we're on question 1. Triggered. I made the point last night that some of these parties are registered in other states, and if they fail to make adjustments, then the Turning Point New South Wales team, the Turning Point Queensland team, the federal Turning Point team, because we've got different teams that are native to the areas, if they do not make the adjustments, then it may start affecting the other states, and then they'll start to be like those internal conflicts in the parties, and that's the point. This is why we do what we do. It's to be the sort of antidote to Glenn Drury, to give greater transparency. That's why we put these graphics out so you can see in all 8 regions where your preferences are flowing, and that's what this is all about. So. We should probably move to the second question, because this isn't just about us, Topher, but I know we're excited we're together in person, though.
Okay, so this is a question more directed at me. Last night, or this is a couple of nights ago now, you said that you'd be voting below the line and finishing with the Liberal Party. Now, that's for the upper house. For the lower house, you have to number every single box regardless.
This is an example, just so people can see. So this is, you don't have to follow this. This isn't exactly how Topher would do it. But this is a how to vote card for the actual...
For Mulgrave?
For Mulgrave. Yep. So as you can see...
And I can tell you right now, that is pretty close to how I would do it. It's pretty close to... I would certainly be putting Ian Cook at number 1. There is no doubt about that.
All 9 freedom parties first. We've numbered them 1 up until we hit the Liberal Party, and we number the Liberal Party. And then it cuts off.
Yeah, now the reason why that happens is because the Liberal Party is unlikely to get eliminated. Preferences matter if the party you voted for gets eliminated. Yeah. Your vote then goes to your next preference. If the party you voted for doesn't get eliminated, it never moves on. So the Liberal Party, the Labor Party, they're likely to be among the last 3 candidates left. And therefore, their preferences are only going to get distributed at the very end, if at all. Okay, that's right. It's when you're voting for smaller, Freedom Party candidates, that sort of thing, that your preferences really do matter. So put all of the good candidates up the top in whatever order you think best, and then use the Liberal Party. This is the lower house we're talking about. Use the Liberal Party as a blocker, because it's very unlikely that your vote will go past them. And I would as much as I despise the Liberal Party in Victoria, I think they're a completely spineless bunch of cowards. I want to see Daniel Andrews and the Labor Party punished for what they did to us. I think we have to draw a line and say, no, you can't do that. So that's why the Liberal Party will be above the Labor Party for me. And then whatever happens after that doesn't really matter. That's the lower house. Upper house is different.
Yeah, upper house is different.
Different for a few reasons. Because in the upper house, you actually can't be sure that the Liberal Party will actually completely block. The Liberal Party may actually end up with a partial quota. They might get, let's say, 2 people elected in the upper house and there's 5 seats up for grabs in each upper house district. They might get 2 and then have a little tiny bit of a quota for number 3, but not enough, and they get knocked out, and their preferences do get distributed at that point. So it just works a little bit differently. But again, for the same reason as I said before, I want to see the Labor Party punished for what they did to us. That's why I will be putting the Liberals on the upper house ticket. I'll put all the candidates that I like in whatever order I think best, and then at the end, I'll put the Liberals before I stop. Now, you don't have to do that. I'm not saying you have to do that. My choice to do that is because I want to see the Labor Party punished. And I would prefer to see a Liberal get elected into the upper house than to see my vote not count, and as a result, I make it more likely for a Green or for a Labor person to get elected into that same seat. Yeah. So, anything wrong with the logic there?
No, that makes sense. Makes perfect sense. We did the vote below the line for people to see on our graphic, so that people would have the power of the vote to go where it was. If you vote above the line, it goes like where the graphs showed before. But yeah, that's the whole thinking behind that. And
I don't know if people can see that graphic. Can you just bring that graphic back up for us?
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on that at all, or is that fixed?
No, I don't. I mean, I can if you.
No, that's
want.
okay.
Which part did you want to zoom in on?
So I wanted to highlight this issue here, your favourite little issue.
Which one's that?
There we go. And where you've got number 2. All right. So on this, this is a Turning Point Australia how to vote card for the lower house seat of Mulgrave.
Yep.
And you've got number 1, Ian Cook. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yep. There you go.
But here's your favourite question right now, Joel.
Yeah, hit me.
Why have you put Labor in number 2?
God, you're trying to trigger me. It's the Democratic Labor Party, guys.
DLP,
All right.
not the same.
We had this problem in the federal election
With the Liberal Democrats.
All right, so with the Liberal Democrats, I get it. The word Liberals in there. Yeah. I understand, guys. But this is the thing. It's not the Liberal Party. We've looked at, as you can see in the policy matrix, you've got the Democratic Labor Party. It's called Labor DLP. It's the 5th party from the top there. You can see all the policies they stand for. They're identical with Family First.
They're actually really good. They're a really good party. If think of Labor in the 1960s.
Yeah.
Right? Family values, hard work, not too big on the spending and taxing and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're actually, I really rate them. I do.
And in Victoria, Bernie Finn's the leader. And when it comes to what happened to Bernie, he was kicked out of the Liberal Party because he was too pro-choice on his social media posts. So Matthew Guy thought it was appropriate just before an election to kick him out. And so Bernie is... And can I just say this? I don't back any one party. I just sort of... because I'm not even on the How to Vote card team. I just tell people this is what the team came to in terms of the conclusion. I'm not Victorian. I'm not from New South Wales. I should not be telling you what's happening. I'm just here to deliver information. With the policy matrix, it shows you where all the different parties are. And can I just say, not only are the DLP the best when it comes to the policies, alongside Family First and others, but they're actually running the most logical campaign. They picked one region out of the 8, and as you can see on this graph, you've got the 8 different regions there. They picked one region. They're running a candidate in, and that's the blue area, guys. They picked a candidate for almost every lower house seat so that they can get votes for the upper house person. Now, that is the most logical thing I've seen. They found a demographic. Some of these seats are some of the most Labor seats you will find in the country. Like, we're talking 30% plus 50%. Like, they're 80% two-party preferred, meaning at the end of the count, when they've distributed all the parties and they're left with 2 parties, they have 80% Labor and then 20% Liberal.
Somebody else, yeah.
Now, there's going to be a lot of people, just like with the Liberal Democrat Party, that accidentally vote Labor. And so in this particular area, the way I see this vote going, and this is honest truth, this is exactly the internal discussions. The team said it's going to be, in the last election, we had 3 Labor, we had one Liberal, that happened to be Bernie before they kicked him out.
Okay.
And we had one Drury pick, which was Catherine Cummings. Now, by the way, Catherine since then has had a mea culpa, and she's called out Drury, and she was actually a part of exposing Drury in this. I just want to say that. So she's had a 180 on that, and I think it was done behind her back. But anyway, what do I see happening this election? I think it's going to be 2 Labor. I do think Labor will do still fairly well. I think it'll be the Liberal candidate will get up first then. Her name, what's her name? I totally forgot her name. She's excellent. She's an absolutely brilliant candidate. She stood up for a lot of children's rights. So she'll get up. Bernie Finn will get up. And I don't know who will get the fifth
So you reckon
one.
DLP? You reckon Bernie Finn under the DLP
I
banner
mean,
will get up?
think about it. All the other parties are running a scattered campaign across the whole state.
Sure.
They're not running candidates in all lower house seats in the DLP. They're focusing in the West. They've connected very well with the religious community out there, particularly the Middle Eastern community, the Muslims, Christians, and...
Bernie's earned a huge amount of respect by being willing to speak about issues that most politicians aren't. So, look, I'm not going to join you in the prediction, but I'll be happy to see it if it happens.
Yeah, well, I think it will, and this is the thing. There is a potential for a fifth. I don't know who's going to get it, but there's potential for it. I'm worried the lefties are going to get it in the form of one of these left-wing parties. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I'm really bugged. I'm really upset. I don't remember the name of the Liberal person running that seat because I've been talking to death about it. I've had maybe this is a question I can just throw in there. I've had probably a number of people say, Joel, you need to put this Liberal person first ahead of Bernie Finn because Bernie's doing a deal in another state and that's a different question. And I said, no, Bernie's a great candidate. We assess the candidates on the merit of the candidate. We vote below the line so that you control the preference and it's not controlled by the party. So it's frankly irrelevant. And do we want to see... The Liberal Party person doesn't need our help to get up. And the vote will flow to them anyway. And so I'm just like, the team's not going to budge on it. And I'm not recommending that they budge on it either. The federal... the election result, if you look at the data, and the data speaks for itself, the last Liberal person to get up there got up on a quota of 1.3, meaning over 1 seat. You can get up on 0.9 of a seat. So, look, no, I'm sorry. And this is the thing. When you vote Liberal, you're not just voting for the star candidate. You're voting for the other 4 or 5 after them. And so you've got to really take these things into consideration.
So there's a good question here that I think cuts to the heart of what you've done and the work that you've done. And I'm going to actually recuse myself from answering this question because I am a member of a specific party, right? And you're not.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a question to you. Looking at Turning Point Australia's regional preference flow charts, if we take the colour of them, green, red, orange, can you just bring up
sure,
see? Just take the colour of them, green, red, orange. The party that stands out as being the closest freedom-aligned party is Family First, according to this questionnaire. And if you look at the charts, it's hard to disagree. Okay? That is all green at the top and all red at the bottom. Is this too simplistic? They just wanted to double-check their logic. What do you think of where Family First are?
Look, Family First, if you look at the policy matrices as well, I mean, on policy, they're good. We know the people that run Family First. They are an excellent squad of people. Lyle Shelton is the main one that sort of leads that. Look, if you look at that graphic, it does look like, generally. I mean, this is just one of the 8 regions, but East Victoria, for example, they are pretty solid. It is kind of upsetting though. Even they didn't quite get it right with the Sackdan Andrews Party and the Sustainable Australia Party. Honestly, guys, you probably should have picked up on that. And I know the team. You should have picked up on that.
I didn't.
Yeah, well, look, this is the thing.
Didn't.
This is the thing, guys. This is why I have so much faith in the team. They did research. They did a number of, well, what I did was I actually came to Victoria and I reported what I saw, and I saw that the Sackdan Andrews Party, from the MPs I talked to, was actually one of those shell companies. So,
shell parties,
same corruption,
same
guys.
deal.
It's the same. And so I reported that back to the team, and we're going to go off that. And so it's very important. Turning point. You can adjust it, no worries. But that, this example, this particular card, it goes up to 23. This is the Mulgrave card. Now, you don't have to do 1 to 23 exactly how we've done it. You've just got to pick your favourite freedom parties on top, like Topher showed in the Marble video, and the Liberals at the end. That's literally it.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
You know, pick whichever party you want, and go. It's literally that. It's that easy, guys. And so, they're a resource. You know, one day, if I have the resources, if I have the funding, I will make something where it will be where you can customize the card. But we are working on a budget here, guys. We aren't like Glenn. We aren't reporting from a yacht, and I don't charge $50,000 a pop for these.
Maybe that's your mistake. Maybe you should learn from that.
Maybe it is. Maybe it.
The how to vote cards for hire.
Literally. Well, you know, that's a funny thing though. I just think that, you know, you really, this is why I recuse myself from it, because in past elections, and we started this in the local elections in New South Wales in December last year, mate, I've never been on the how to vote card team, because what ends up happening is they're like, oh, Joel's putting out how to vote cards.
Yeah.
We need to bribe Joel. We need to threaten Joel. We need to, and it's happened, man.
Yeah.
And so look, what I see happening in Victoria, this is why we have the policy that we do. I'm not from Victoria. I will not tell you how to vote. I will be the messenger from the team, but the team and their identity and their children, they will be safe. And they can sleep safe tonight, because Joel will be the messenger for this. And that way, and this is the thing, are we not flexible? No, not at all. In the federal election, we made a number of adjustments based on new information. And that's the great thing about our cards, we can update them. But you need to send me an email about that, and I'll try. I'm getting a little bit banked up with the emails now, probably about 20 behind. But
Is that all? Goodness.
Mate, no,
You're doing well.
but this is the thing. I'm 20 behind, but I haven't slept. So it's like, take your pick. It would be worse. But anyway, look, that's what this is about. This is to sort of give you guys, and we'll go back to the questions now, but it's to answer as many questions as possible, because it means less emails for us.
Yes,
so what do we have next?
Yes, it does. All right, so we've got a number of different questions that I'm kind of sort of combining into one. People are asking about... Ooh, you're right.
That was very close.
People are asking about permutations in the upper house, and this gets really, really messy. But particularly, there's a lot of people, and I think rightly so, I think this is a valid question, concerned about the fact that with the Liberal Democratic Party having played the Glenn Drury game, and the not the Transport Matters Party, the Animal Justice Party, therefore having a pretty good spot in Northern Victoria and other parties having good spots elsewhere, that this could possibly backfire. Now, they're not wrong, but it's not as simple as just reading through the list and saying, well, my preference goes from there to there to there to there. There is more to it than that, but depending on who gets knocked out first, etc. So can you run us through, in the upper house, what should we be looking for in order to figure out what's going to happen with the preferences?
Yeah, sure. I mean, guys, look at the cards. I mean, I'm not talking about the how to vote cards. If you really want to make something up yourself, look at all of the different regions. This is the North Metro. This is the West Metro. This is the North Victoria. This is, Western Victoria. Southern Metro. Yeah. Southeast Metro. I don't know why I'm listing this. Northeast Metro
Can you go to
Eastern
Northern
Victoria.
Because this is a great example of where there's a risk has been taken here, and it could go wrong.
There you go.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to use my... Thank you for printing out the cheat sheet.
That's yours.
For me.
Yeah, no worries. It's
I'm looking for Northern Victoria. Where are Western...
there we go.
Northern Victoria. Okay. Beautiful. So if you look at the Liberal Democrats, Northern Victoria, Animal Justice Party comes in fourth. Okay? Yeah. And the Liberal National Party come in second. Yeah. Now, I want to say a huge thank you to you, because I got on the blower to you and I said, look, that Liberal National Party second on this one is actually not quite accurate. Because all they've got there is actually the first of the 5 Liberal Party candidates. Yeah. Now, the reason why that's significant is because the first one's going to get elected anyway. That's right. They're going to already have a quota, which means that for practical purposes, they're basically invisible to the preferences. The preferences are going to skip straight over them and keep on looking for a home, because they've already got a full quota. So it's actually, in practice, it's the Angry Victorian Party, or the Australian Values Party, good guys, like you said, who are actually in second. And then the Animal Justice Party. Yeah. And then the Sack Down Andrews Party, which I was hoodwinked, along with many other people, thinking, oh, well, Sack Down Andrews Party, that must be a good party. No, they're not. They're a Glenn Drury shell party. The New Democrats, Companions and Pets Party, they're an interesting bunch. Legalised cannabis, by the way, in my opinion, should be green, not red. That's just my own personal view.
Right.
I'm all on board decriminalising cannabis, but that's another.
We actually exclude them from the policy matrix.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's a one-issue party.
It's a single-issue party,
And
exactly.
that's the problem. They don't even make it on the left to right spectrum.
No, that's right.
It's
It's a single-issue party. I think we shouldn't be throwing people in prison for smoking a plant, but that's another story. Okay, so a lot of people are looking at this going, Animal Justice Party, in what is effectively third place, that's a worry. And it has the potential to be Northern Victoria Animal Justice Party, they do okay, right? They do okay. Here's the logic behind this. This was a necessary deal that had to be done as part of the Drury thing, right? Remember the parties getting together, all picking who gets favoured where, okay? This was the seat where the Liberal Democrats, to be a part of that system, had to favour the Animal Justice Party. Here's an interesting sidebar, though. The Animal Justice Party did not uphold their end of any of these deals. They did not uphold their end of any of these deals. They completely screwed everybody.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, once they get published, they can't be changed by law. And so now the Liberal Democrats and all the other parties that were a part of this have all been screwed by the Animal Justice Party. So they'll never get trusted again if the system persists. Hopefully it will get changed before the next election.
Yeah.
But here's the question that you need to be looking at. You need to consider when the Liberal Democratic Party, in this case, I'm just using this as an example, but this applies to all of them, when will their preferences be distributed? Will it be before the Animal Justice Party has been eliminated, or will it be after? Right? Now, on primary vote, the Animal Justice Party does okay. They're actually pretty close to the Liberal Democratic Party. But this is where this principle that we've had, and I've been talking about since before the federal election, all the freedom parties need to put all of each other above any major party, right? This has been the message that I've been on for over a year now. And unfortunately, some of the other parties didn't do that. And therefore, the Liberal Democrats are not likely to get preferences early on. Let's say the United Australia Party, they've never run in Victoria in a Victorian election before. Okay, I'm not having a go at them. They successfully got a senator up in Victoria at the federal election, so maybe they'll do really well. But let's assume for a moment, first time out in a Victorian state election, maybe they don't do that great. They get eliminated. If their preferences had gone to the Liberal Democrats, then the Liberal Democrats might have come over the top of the Animal Justice Party. The Animal Justice Party gets eliminated, and the Liberal Democrats carry on their merry way. Yeah. Right? But instead, because there's Liberal National Party and the entire Liberal National Party, all 5 candidates at number 2 for the UAP, and I'm not having a go at the UAP, I'm illustrating, then all of a sudden the Liberal Democrats don't get those preferences. And maybe that's the difference. And now the Animal Justice Party does come over the top. Yeah. And then we've got a real problem, right? So is it a risk? Yes, it is. This is a seat where there is some risk in return for reward in other seats, and in return for reward in the form of where the LDP are placed in other people's how to vote cards as well. Yeah. So this is the problem, right? You get into bed with Drury, you end up working with parties that don't share your values, but you've agreed to have that wheel. Same as what all the hard left socialist parties have done between themselves, right? Only this time there isn't that same values alignment, and this is where you end up. Yeah. So when you read this, my point is, when you read this, you need to be having in the back of your mind whether these other parties further down the list are even going to still be in the running. Yeah. The New Democrats, I will propose to you, will not still be in the running when the Liberal Democrats are eliminated. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Companions and Pets Party will probably be eliminated long before the Liberal Democrats are eliminated. Yeah. So they're really not going to be there. The Sack Dan Andrews Party, I don't know, maybe they'll get some donkey vote, maybe they'll get some people going, oh yeah. I mean, who knows? They're a bit of a wild card, but hopefully they'll be long gone before the Liberal Democrats get eliminated. At that point, they're irrelevant. They don't matter. Right. But the reason I brought up the Northern Victorian one, and the reason I brought up the LDP specifically, is because this is one of the places where they've had to take a risk. Yeah, that's right. And in order to participate in that wheel. Yeah, and that's why you can see two yellows there, guys. You know, the fact that a lot of the problem with my first version of the graphs is, one, I was on zero sleep, but two, I made a decision in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., to basically not. I was stuck on 24 cells, and I didn't want to increase it. You're right. I ended up increasing it to 26 after having a chat with Topher, because it turned out the Liberal Democrats, first, their votes were they had the Liberal Party as number 2, but it was frankly irrelevant. As I said in the West Metro, the Liberal Party don't frankly need your help to get one up. They've got, the rules are so stacked in their favour, they don't need it. So the Liberal Democrats, by preferencing the Liberal National Party too, it's actually, frankly, it's irrelevant.
Don't worry, no one saw it.
That went well. I've got beer all over the floor, beer all over my seat.
As long as we don't slip on camera, the joys of post-production. But so yeah, look, the Liberal Party votes won't kick in till 2, 3, and 4 after.
Yeah.
But look, that's the thing. Do I agree with the Glenn Drury stuff? Do I agree that the Lib Dems, to an extent, have enabled the system to happen? No, I don't. But again, as I said last night, the system's collapsing. Glenn's it's in the mainstream now. It's no longer the sort of thing that's whispered in the halls, and all the parties that I've spoken to have pledged to actually fix this right now.
Yeah, and that's fantastic.
And that's encouraging because it's the first step for a better Victoria. And you know, I had an epiphany as you were talking. I thought, you know what, Joel? If the team grows in 4 years for the next election and we haven't changed the rules, I think I'll do this, and I'll do it again, but with the left-wing parties, and then Greens, Liberal, Labor on the side, so you can actually see both.
Yeah.
But
right.
but that would mean that I'd need to be a whiz, like I'd need to work double time. Not sure. Maybe I can get a volunteer, but
Right.
it's
I'm going
suicide.
to give you that one back so you can put it back into your pile and I can get access to this. Okay. So essentially what this is, I mean, there is a very large degree to which we just don't know what the outcome of this is going to be.
No.
Of course not. I mean, that's why we have elections.
It's exciting.
But the point that I would also add to that before we move on from all the Glenn Drury stuff and put that to bed, if we had group voting tickets in Tasmania when I ran down there for the Liberal Democrats, and there was myself, there was Steve Mav running for One Nation, and there was Diana Adams running for UAP. Fantastic candidates. We all worked together. We got on great. We attended each other's campaign launches. We had our volunteers handing out each other's how to vote cards, doing coverage for each other. Like it was an amazing vibe. But what happened was people walked into the polling booth, and despite my marbles videos, despite so much messaging to the contrary, people walked in, they voted number 1 for me, and then 80% of them just went number 2 to the Liberal Party. And then for Diana Adams, they voted number 1 for Diana Adams and number 2 for the Liberal Party. Number 1 for Steve Mav, One Nation, number 2 for the Liberal Party.
Yeah.
And as a result, our votes never actually gathered together. Now, this is what the group voting tickets kind of solve in a way. Now, let me be clear, I'm all in favour of abolishing them. I don't think they're actually a good democratic tool. But at a practical level, they do have the effect of all of the donkey votes actually gathering.
Yeah.
And all it would have taken was for all of the freedom parties to put each other all the way up the top. And, you know, obviously Liberal Democrats, my own party, didn't do that. They participated in the Glenn Drury system.
Yeah.
Also, almost none of the other, I mean, Liberal Democratic Party, sorry, the Democratic Labor Party, Democratic Labor Party, DLP, they did it. Family First did it. Not across the board, but most of the time. That's about it.
Mate, all fall short of the glory
Like,
of
yeah,
God.
all have fallen
Literally.
short,
And that's why we
including
did
my own party,
And this is
right?
why it was literally like, go and make your own. I was like, I will.
Yeah.
And here you go.
And this is why you're going to hear me and Joel and a lot of other people that are switched on telling you vote below the line.
Absolutely.
Because you
Absolutely.
can decide to do the right
Yeah.
thing even if your parties haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you can still put all the freedom parties at the top, use the Liberal Party as a blocker, put all the dross down the bottom in the lower house. Obviously in the upper house you don't even have to put the dross there at all. All right.
It's astonishing. You know, I mean, in the federal election, I had that epiphany. I was looking at Pauline and Clive and all the other party leaders, and they kept saying, you know, all this news was coming about. You know, you did this preference deal and the how to vote cards and that preference deal, and then they'd all say, the power is in the hands of the voter. The power is in the hands of the voter. It's up to them.
And it still is.
And they were dog whistling to you guys to say, don't follow our card.
Correct.
Don't follow it.
Correct.
Make your own.
Correct.
Control it how you want. Because what happens is they get the benefit of the deal from the other side. But if we've got smarter people on our side, then the parties that they made the deal with don't get the benefit. But your Freedom Party gets the benefit. And so if we're more educated than the lefties, than the drones, than the normies, then what ends up happening is we are like the Greens and Labor.
Yeah.
You know how they share their votes 100%? And yeah.
All right. So I want to take a step back a little bit here, be a little bit more philosophical about things. You made some great comments to me in the car on the way here around the importance of growing the pie. And the importance of, you know, I love, for example, what the DLP are doing specifically because they're going to be bringing voters across from Labor.
Yeah.
They're not fighting with the UAP and One Nation and Liberal Democrats over the same voters. They've actually devised a strategy that says we're going to attract voters across from Labor, and we're going to grow that size. Tell us a bit about what you learned in the federal election, the actual size of the freedom vote, and the importance of growing that pie.
Yeah, look, I remember a few months out from the federal election, one of the biggest problems I pointed out was in a lot of these meetings, guys, we've got to go after the mainstream. I think because this is the problem. Everyone was overestimating the crowd sizes. And when I saw that, I was like, guys, yeah, look, the mainstream media is misreporting. There was a protest in Sydney. It was the one that I ended up getting done for incitement on, but I ended up winning, which was great. But they ended up saying that it was 3,500 bullheads. And I said, look, I don't do maths, but it wasn't 3,500. It was at least 40 to 50,000. Yeah, right. But this is the thing. I thought it'd be even more people. You'd expect there to be because of what had happened in New South Wales. And this is what happened in a number of protests, whether it was the going to Canberra protest, whether it was the Victorian protest. Everyone was like, millions.
There were not. Sorry, can we put this to bed? There were not 1 million people in Canberra.
No.
Look at the footage. Look at the shots.
We put the drone footage out.
Then compare it to Woodstock. There were 1 million people at Woodstock.
Yeah.
Compare the pair. There were not 1 million people in Canberra. It was a freaking massive crowd. We can be proud of what you all did. I sadly couldn't get there, but what you guys did in Canberra was phenomenal and amazing, and I'm proud of you. Yeah. But there weren't 1 million people. Can we please stop saying there were?
What it is it's an overcorrection. What's happened is everyone distrusts the institutions, distrusts the media. Heck, they distrust me, and I don't blame you. Question everything we say.
Sure.
But what's happened, it's gotten to the point where we've overestimated, and the madness of crowds, as Douglas Murray would say, has actually taken over. What ends up happening is, we overestimate our power. And this didn't... I didn't realise this until about probably March this year. There was the South Australian state election, and we got a measly percentage. It was enough to get Sarah Game up for One Nation, which is a freedom, senator there, you might call her. She's in the upper house. And that is why you guys need that sort of voting, like what we've got in New South Wales. But the problem was, and she almost actually got the balance of power, which is actually quite funny. Wow. Yeah, it was by one. Actually, that's an interesting story. They almost got it by one vote. But what happened was Labor was in government, and instead of appointing someone in the upper house from the Labor, they appointed someone from the Liberal. And the Liberal guy needed the money. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But this is the thing: we came within one seat.
Dirty games.
One seat. But this is the thing: there's like however many people in the upper house there. Why was there only one? Why was there only less than 10% voting? And South Australia wasn't hit as hard. I thought, maybe it's bigger in the other states. And then when the federal election came around, 2 weeks out, I was like, guys, we're protesting. We're not manning polling booths. Candidates are calling me on the phone. They're crying. They're saying, where's the help? And I knew it was going to be a Labor. I said it was either going to be a Labor government or a Labor government with a crossbench that are lefties. Yeah. And that is precisely what happened. It's a Labor government in their own right with plenty of lefties in the teals. And on top of that, I said the Greens are on track to get one senator in every state, making it 12 senators because they have 6 from the last election. That's right. And so all my posts document this. And so I said, guys, we're not doing enough. Like, we are on track to lose this thing. And that's exactly what happened. I said we could get 2 to 6 senators. We missed out on 6 because of preference deals where the Liberal Party shut out parties like One Nation in Tasmania, South Australia, WA, and New South Wales, for example. But it was within our grasp. Now, why am I talking about all this? Victoria's vote in the federal election ended up being 11%. Now that's
the freedom vote.
The freedom vote.
Victoria.
Sorry, did I say One Nation?
No, you said the vote.
The vote. Yeah. Sorry. So the vote. You guys have about 7 million people in this state.
6.5. I
Six
think,
and a half. You guys did very well with 11%. You need about 14% to get someone up. So the fact that you got someone up on only 11%, is phenomenal. And there were not a lot of people that didn't end up coming out to vote. Now, I'll tell you why it's good news. Because there's 89% of voters out there which you haven't even tapped into. Yeah, exactly. Now, I was with a taxi driver today, and I was driving, and this is something Nigel Farage and all the political greats they all say this, but Nigel taught me in person. He said, Joel, if you arrive in a city and you want to know the politics, you talk to the taxi driver. I mean, everyone knows this. Yeah. And so I'm in this car today, and I ask him, after chatting about a few things, I said, so what do you think is going to happen? And he says, I think Dan Andrews, as you know, he did a very good job managing the pandemic. And I was like, okay. All right. Okay. Because what it is, it's like, we didn't reach that guy. And that was the point. We haven't done enough to reach those people.
Yeah.
There's 89% of people we haven't tapped into. Now, this is the thing. This is the thing, guys. Is this a message of that we're going to lose? No, it's not at all. It's actually that it's actually an optimistic message. We are so close to getting a phenomenal result, and the majority of people haven't yet cast their vote.
No.
If you've done nothing up until this point, it's not too late. And I'll tell you why. Pre-poll, typically 40% of people in this state vote before the election.
Which I don't understand, because that means they miss out on the democracy sausage.
Yeah. I know. Why would you do that?
To me, is like,
Yeah.
what are you thinking?
Yeah. 40% before next Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. We're on day 3. Day 4.
Yeah.
You know, just started. So the amount of people that have cast their vote today, I don't know, what is it? We're getting on almost 10%.
Be somewhere there, yeah.
There's almost 90% of people that haven't cast their vote yet. Get to a polling booth, pick your favourite team and your jersey, and get out there and have a vote cast.
And here's the other thing to add to that. The ones that are out there voting now are the ones that already know who they're going to vote for. Right? The ones that are actually more able to be influenced are the ones that are going to be voting on election day, or in the last few days before election day, where it's like, well, I can't make it on election day, I'll go on the Friday, I'll go on the Thursday. The ones that are voting now typically are ones who, yes, they're going to be busy on election day, but also they've already made up their mind. They're not able to be influenced.
That's right.
So the importance of having people on the polling booth actually increases as you get closer to that actual election day.
Yeah.
So I wholeheartedly agree. Now, you've got some resources on your website to help people be able to contact parties and volunteer.
Yeah, sure. So there's actually a volunteer funnel, guys. So I was just putting Topher's link up there so you guys can see. But if you go to the Turning Point Australia website,
which I highly recommend you do.
Thank you. www.tpos.com.au. We've got, and this graphic's been updated, but we've got Turning Point basically sending our audience and basically anyone that comes across the website, it connects you with the actual parties. So you're able to have your name, your number, your email passed on to them, pick wisely, and that'll get passed on to them, and you can say, hey, I want to be a volunteer, and that'll go through. Now, we're going to add a feature in the coming days which will allow you to click if you want to be a scrutineer as well. We need to be looking out for each other's ballots, you know.
100%.
And so, look, that's going to be a really important thing that comes out. But yeah, look, that's one of the many things that we have on the website. And when I set out to sort of help the Victorians with this election with these tools, I just didn't want, I don't know if the word excuse is the right word. I just wanted to hold nothing back so that the problems we had in the federal election, they're not an issue this election. And you have everything you need.
Yeah.
You have the time right now.
Yeah.
You have the time. And this is the thing.
Yeah.
If you are working and you can't do pre-poll, that's okay. Do election day.
Yeah.
If you can, try and pop in early. Vote tonight. Vote tomorrow. Vote before the polling booth closes. And so that you can not vote on the Saturday and then volunteer on the Saturday. It'll make a massive difference. Between now, and this is the advantage, 40% of people vote during pre-poll. There's only 1 or 2 polling places open in every election.
That's right.
So in terms of having 1-for-1 manpower with the major parties, now's the time to do it.
The minor parties can do it now.
On election day, less so.
Yeah.
On election day, there are in the federal election, there was 50 polling booths per electorate. I don't know what it's like here, but there's way more. The major parties pay their people handing out their volunteers.
They're not volunteers.
They're not volunteers. They're 200 to 250 bucks a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's a day's work. They pay them. You know, we have people manning the polling booths by the courage of their convictions.
Yeah.
And so now is the best time to get out if you can. If you can't, then election day, it's even more scarce with volunteers.
Yeah.
Make sure you if you've been holding onto that sign, put it up now. Put them all up. Put multiple up. That's the thing. In the federal election, I encourage people to put more than one up for their freedom parties because it'll all channel to the same sort of way.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's the best advice. That's the best thing you can do now. If you've done nothing to this point, that's okay.
Yeah, get out there. I stopped and had a chat yesterday. There's a bloke that lives not far from me that has a ute. He's a tradie of some sort. And he had a handwritten, Sack Dan Andrews sign on it for a long time. And he's recently upgraded that to these lovely blue with white text Sack Dan Andrews stickers that he's got on there.
Yes.
And I saw he was out the front of his house, and I pulled up and I'm like, mate, I've been admiring your ute since we moved into the area. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And we had a great little chat. Funnily enough, he had no idea about Battleground Melbourne, the documentary. Didn't know that it existed. Sure. But he'd been at some of the protests. He'd done all sorts of different things. He knew people that were quite deeply involved, but somehow wasn't aware of that. So now he's helping to spread that further and get more people to watch it. But I asked him, I said, have you had any trouble because of the stickers? Because he's driving to work sites and job sites. And he said he was in Northcote last week and someone scribbled on the side of his van, F off, right? On the side of his ute. That's it. That's the whole trouble that he's had.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people, you've got the call for, you've got the sign, you want to stick it up and you're like, oh, but I'm going to get so much trouble. No, you're not.
Do it.
You're not. And what you're going to have is conversations with people like me who are randomly driving past and who are like, dude, love your work.
Yep.
That's what you're actually going to have.
Yeah.
These parties need us. I said before the federal election, we've just got to do the boring.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to do the boring stuff. The boring stuff is stuffing letterboxes, putting up signs, standing on polling booths. It's boring.
Yeah.
But it does actually make a difference. You and I stopped briefly past the Mulgrave pre-polling place before we came here. Yeah. I was having a chat with Ian Cook's volunteers, Ian the Independent. If you're in the Mulgrave electorate, please vote number 1 for Ian Cook. And chatting with them, and they were commenting on how chatty a lot of people were. And how they had actually changed a lot of people's votes on the way in. They didn't know that Ian Cook existed. Right. But then by having all these people, Ian Cook hats and Ian Cook shirts, and they're like, oh, okay, what's this about? And then they hear a bit of the story, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to vote for that guy. Yep. It makes a massive difference.
The data shows that. Emily said that last night. She's Emily from Voice of Victoria, legend.
Yes.
She's running his campaign. She made the point, the most effective thing you can do, the polling shows, the evidence shows, is to ban the polling. Yeah, so absolutely, it's the best advice. Yeah.
Now, Joel is completely neutral. I'm not. So I'm going to say this. These are my opinions. I think that there are 4 people that we absolutely specifically need to be getting behind in this election, in my opinion. Number 1, we just mentioned him, Ian Cook. He's running head-to-head with Daniel Andrews. He's been a direct victim of Daniel Andrews' corruption, in my opinion. And we need to see him get up, or at least do really, really well, so that Daniel Andrews loses his seat. The other 3 of the 4 that I'm going to mention are the 3 people that were elected MPs during COVID who stood up for us in a really meaningful sense. Now, Neil Angus did as well for the Liberals. A little bit. But specifically, David Limbrick, Tim Quilty, Catherine Cummings. These are the 3 people that were elected MPs that stood up for us. Now, Catherine Cummings, I found out just the other day from my viewers, has apparently joined the Angry Victorians Party.
Yeah, she's running in the West Metro.
Yeah, Western Metro
I'm
District.
hoping she's the 5th one that gets up. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. That'd be amazing.
Because she stood with us, she voted with us.
To get Bernie Finn and Catherine Cummings.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
And by the way, guys, she needs volunteers.
Yeah.
I mean,
get out there. Look, get out there.
Everyone needs volunteers, but she needs volunteers particularly because the Victorian Electoral Commission gave her such a headache with volunteers. She poured so many resources into trying to get her independence party up. Yeah, it's like she was prepared to go to court. I'm just so thankful that the Angry Victorians not only exposed the Drury thing, but did that, because it's like, imagine this. Imagine you're Catherine Cummings. You've got into politics because you have the courage of your convictions to stand up for your community. You get in there under a certain party that had just done the Drury thing, and you were new to politics. You had no idea.
You didn't know, yeah.
The moment you find out, you leave the party, you're on your own in the wilderness. We get hit by this pandemic. You stick by the people, just like with the other members of Parliament in the upper house, and then you try to register your own party called the Independence Party, which she originally set up so that other candidates that wanted to run as independents would have a vehicle. She tried to set it up so that they didn't have to go through the VEC and it wasn't a headache. VEC say no. She's prepared to go to court. It's too late. We're at the 11th hour. Thank God the Angry Victorians, Heston Russell and Chris Burson, actually put their hand up. And if you're in the West Metro area, please, she's another candidate which absolutely should be volunteering for.
Yeah, please.
And she's been blowing the whistle on this Glenn stuff for a while.
Yep, 100%. And along with Bernie Finn for the Democratic Labor Party. and I'm always going to go into bat for the Liberal Democrats, but
Sure.
you can choose what you want to do there.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it's really important to me not only that we see a move against Daniel Andrews, but that we see those 3 MPs who stood for us when it mattered get rewarded. Because if David Limerick, Tim Quilty and Catherine Cummings all lose their seats, and so does Daniel Andrews, well, it's a mixed message. It's not clear what the lesson here is.
Yeah.
If Daniel Andrews loses his seat, the Labor Party lose their government, and David, Tim and Catherine Cummings are all returned, the message is very, very clear. Right? Supporting freedom was a vote-winning, principled stand to take.
right.
So that's the message that we want to be sending, and that means we've got to re-elect these guys.
Yeah, and if you do that, it'll help us in New South Wales because we've got an election in March, and they'll be like, crap. Get Joel's policy matrix. We need yeses on all of these.
Let's bribe Joel. Let's bribe Joel.
Joel, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, that'll be funny. Yeah. And that's the thing, guys. The last thing, I guess, I mean, on this topic, I'll say is, it's not enough to get your vote right. You know, we can sweat over our vote card and how we're going to do all the different numbers and everything. This is nothing. This is one vote. There are a number of... in the federal election, I was at the Parramatta polling booth with a number of the Freedom candidates there. And there was a guy that walked in, I crap you not, with a VB bottle. And he's like, I'm just going to throw it out. This is exactly... This is the...
I like him already.
Your sweating over this vote is equivalent to that vote. So you are doubling your vote if you convince one person to change it. And there's so many people, there's dozens of people, you will change their votes if you go to the polling booth. Let them say no. If you don't try, if you don't rock up to the battlefield, the blue-haired idiots will be the ones that seize the reins of control in this state, and then you'll be crying poor to us in New South Wales and being like, yep, can we come and enjoy some of the freedom you got in New South Wales? We need Victoria. You know, China's trying to get their tentacles into this state. You know, Glenn and Dan Andrews, they're running this sort of operation in this state, which is just absolutely reprehensible. We can't lose Victoria. We can't. And if we do, we've got a home for New South Wales. But let's get it right. Yeah. It's not too late.
No.
It's actually as I said before, it's not too late. 10% of votes have been cast. 90% are up for grabs. Yeah. The balance is there. Just got to do it.
Look, you've run out of your Turkish delight treats, which means we need to finish.
I'm about to get upset.
Yeah, which means we need to finish before he turns into the green-eyed monster. I want to finish on this thought. Yeah. There's been a lot of noise and fury in the last couple of days in Victorian politics. There's a lot of things that could very easily distract us from the core purpose and the core mission that we have in front of us. And the mission that we have in front of us is to increase the number of people who are going to vote for freedom. Okay, as Joel just showed, we had 11% at the federal election. We need that to become 15%, 18%, 20%, who knows? Yep. And I just want you to focus your energy and focus your amplification, right? If you're going to repost something online or what have you, amplify the voices that are trying to grow the pie, that are trying to make the freedom vote bigger, and not the voices that are trying to divide us. Okay? Okay? I'm not going to say any more than that.
Well, let me rephrase that, and I echo the sentiments. Let's think about this for 2 seconds. The Glenn Drury stuff, it's in the public. The mainstream media is writing about it. It's, you know, the Sky News has been talking about it. How the hell are you going to explain that complex of a topic to the people on the playground?
89%, yeah.
Literally, you've got have you manned a polling booth before? You've got 2 seconds with them. You know, I think that's why maybe the UAP in the federal election, they don't have this for the state. Maybe in the federal election they were like, free education in the university. Do you see what I mean? Like, you've got to look at the person. You've got to be the most racist, misogynist sort of. You've got to do a really quick assessment, top to bottom, as quick as a computer. Think about the policy in your platform that appeals to them and blurt it out before they get a how to vote card from the Labor guy. That's what we're talking about here. You don't have time to explain to them about the Glenn Drury. It doesn't. The Glenn Drury stuff's not going to bring down their electricity bills. Yeah. It's not going to bring down any of this stuff. The cost of living. That literally. Look at the policy matrix. Think about, how am I going to bring down housing? How am I going to make it more affordable for your children? How am I going to increase the opportunities for you and your kids to have a stable environment? You know, how are these farmers are going to get the water that they need and not be regulated by the government? Then you will realize how insignificant the jury stuff is. It's all baked in. No one can change their how to vote cards anyway. You know, we've got to get on with the job. Sell your party.
Yeah.
Sell, if you truly believe in your ideas, sell them. And that's the best thing I can say.
You help the movement by lifting your preferred party up, not by tearing the other ones down.
Yeah.
That's the message.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Go into bat for them. Absolutely go into bat for them, but not by tearing the other ones down. All right, Joel, thank you very much.
No, look, it's my
You've
pleasure.
been very generous with your time. I know you've got to jump
Thank
on a
you.
flight soon and all the rest of that. But thank you so much. Thank you for these incredible resources. Can you put your website
Yeah,
back up
sure.
one more time? It's phenomenal. What you've done
Thank
is
you.
absolutely phenomenal. tpost.com.au. Get over there, have a look at the resources. Make sure you're volunteering. You're on a polling booth. You're doing something. And of course, if you want to check out my stuff, topherfield.net, you can do that as well.
Yes. So yeah. Look. Sorry. Quickly. Number of resources. Just so you know. Just briefly. You've got the volunteer funnel, which is, as Topher said, will direct you to the party. Educational graphics, like you've seen featured today. The transparency reports, where you can actually see. You can actually click the website. Click your address, and it'll show you your MP and some of the things that they've been voting on. In fact, the ones in bold, you can click it, and it'll take you to the article where we got it from, because this is mainstream information, and also how they voted on certain bills. You've got the how to vote cards, which is just our recommendation. The regional preference flowcharts, which we referred to early on as well, which shows you where the parties are preferencing. And we've also got secure the vote scrutiny training coming on Tuesday next week. But I want to recommend you all go also follow Topher, subscribe to his mailing list. Big Tech's getting the hold of all of us. So if you want to subscribe to his list, if you want to subscribe to Turning Point, it's on our website as well. And I want to thank you for hosting us last minute on this.
No, look, thank you very much. I'm so glad you came down to Melbourne. Guys, final word is this. Vote below the line.
Absolutely.
You control your vote. Thank you for joining us.